Now, I've directed Superintendent Brown to order all police districts to give special attention to these parties. And this is how it's going to be. We will shut you down, we will cite you, and if we need to, we will arrest you and we will take you to jail. Period. There should be nothing unambiguous about that. Don't make us treat you like a criminal. But if you act like a criminal and you violate the law and you refuse to do what is necessary to save lives in the city in the middle of a pandemic, we will take you to jail, period. So that means if you host a party, if you promote a party, if you go to a party, we're not playing games. We mean business, and we are going to shut this down one way or the other. The time for educating people into compliance is over. Don't be stupid. Don't come out. Don't advertise on social media. We're watching you, and we are going to take decisive action. Now, if you see one of these parties happening, or you know that it's going to happen, you can contact the police department anonymously. You can do it by dialing 911. You can report it online at cpdtip.com or texting 274-637 or texting 274-637 or crimes and typing CPD into your message. And let me also add how upset I am about the selfishness of these parties. We have healthcare workers every day risking life and limb to take care of people in hospitals who are gasping for their last breath because they're sick with COVID-19. We have police officers, first responders, firemen, EMTs who are going to calls for service for people who are desperately in need of medical care. Every single one of those calls, they put themselves at risk. How can we not honor that sacrifice by doing a simple thing? And that is staying at home. We have to do better. And folks, you're not just putting yourselves at risk. If you live in a house with somebody who is over 60, or you live in a household with somebody who has an underlying medical condition, every single time you go out, you are bringing the curse of this virus home to them. Now, I will say that I'm proud of the number of Chicagoans who have stood up in this time and done the right thing. We were seeing about 82% compliance with the stay-at-home order. But in the last week, that slipped down to 77%. And why? Because people think it's summer, it's warm out, I can do whatever I want. I'm young, it's not gonna affect me. It does, it will, and we will make sure that you are in compliance. But the better thing to do is value your own life. Value the life of people in your household. Value the life of the people that you will never even know, but that you'll come into contact with. And please, folks, you've got to stay home and save lives. Widespread house parties and other large gatherings that took place last night, including parties that CPD broke up, of 50 and even 150 people. And unfortunately, we know that more are planned tonight. This frankly doesn't come as a surprise given the warm weather. We've all been cooped up, we all miss our friends, and we all want to go outside and gather in groups. However, those aspirations simply cannot become a reality in the middle of a pandemic. Those desires are absolutely no excuse for breaking the law, ignoring the stay-at-home order, violating social distance, and putting you and everyone you come into contact at risk. COVID-19 is dangerous and deadly. It's still here, folks, ruthlessly attacking people all over this city. We have spent 6 weeks working and sacrificing to halt the spread of this disease and save lives. And you better believe I'm not going to allow any individuals to upend the progress that we've made or add more deaths to our city's toll. Today or tomorrow, we're going to top 1,000 deaths in our city. Think about that. 1,000 people dead simply because of COVID-19. I can't make this any clearer. You absolutely must stay at home. And that means your home, not somebody else's home, not an Airbnb, not some party place. You need to stay at your home. That's what this means. Going to a party now during this pandemic while Chicagoans are still dying every day is a height of foolishness. And why is it foolish? Let's look at the data. Just because you're young doesn't mean you can't get it. You can. 3,491 young people, 18 to 29, and counting every single day, have contracted this virus in our city. And yes, folks, black people can get COVID-19. The first death in our city was that of a black woman who got the disease and unfortunately passed away as a result. And what we also know is that 53% of the deaths in Chicago are among black people. 23% are among Latinx, and growing every single day. What do these numbers make plain? That you are risking your own health, you are risking the health of every single other person you come into contact with when you go out and party in these large settings. When you go out and party, when you go home to your mama, your grandma, or anybody in your household who has an underlying medical condition, you are bringing death to their doorstep. Make no mistake about it. And if you care about them, you will stop this foolish, reckless behavior. And that goes double for communities like this one on the west side, where we're seeing disproportionately large numbers of cases and, yes, deaths. And this is not the only community across the city where that is true. If you want to hang out with your friends, call them. If you want to have a dance party, TikTok, some other form of video. But for every foolish person that hosts a party, for every foolish person that goes to a party, what you're doing is putting yourself in danger, putting in others in danger, and making this crisis harder and longer and more difficult for us to control and contain. We all need to be thinking about the long game. And having these parties, when we need people to continue to stay at home, is just silly. What's it gonna mean? It's gonna mean that we're never getting out of this. Your actions are gonna make a difference between whether or not we get out sooner or later, whether or not we have a summer or we do not. So it is absolutely essential that we stay the course and people stay home. Now, we know the heroes in our communities are doing exactly what they need to do, and even going a step further and telling us where some of these parties are actually happening. And we commend the people who are stepping up and recognizing that they have a responsibility and that we all have a responsibility.
Beyond the parties that you've spoken about, what concerns do you have with this nicer weather and people being out and about, not practicing social distancing and not wearing masks?
Well, we know that we've made progress in our city in really trying to flatten the curve. We still haven't seen a decrease yet in cases, but all the progress that we've made is because of social distancing, because of people staying home. And if people use the nice weather as an excuse to retreat from all the restrictions and movement that we know are making a difference, we're going to see another spike in cases. And we're not going to be able to get out of this anytime soon. That's what I'm worried about.
What is the city doing to address the rising number of cases, particularly among the Latinx community?
Well, we have been working diligently as part of our racial equity rapid response team, reaching out into the Latinx community, particularly healthcare providers and other trusted stakeholders in the community. We're going to be rolling out a very specific strategy this week. But the first thing that we did is to make sure that we're actually getting accurate information. We were feared and we believed to be true a serious undercount of the number of Latinx infections. So we're starting to get better data there, which is helpful. But what we're seeing is a significant rise in the number of cases. So we've got to be just as diligent in reaching out to the Latinx community as we've done in the Black community, where we've seen disproportionate number of deaths and disproportionate number of infections.
You also talked about taking tough action for anyone who is engaging in these large parties. What do you say to people who have concerns about that based on, long time over-policing in certain communities?
Well, this isn't about over-policing. This is about saving people's lives, period. Saving people's lives. And as I said before, if you're young and you think you can't get it, that's just wrong. Over 3,400 people between the ages of 18 and 29 have gotten the virus and counting. And the other thing that we have to know is, even if you don't fear for yourself, but you should, is that every single time that you're out in these congregate settings and you ignore social distancing, where you're not washing your hands, where you're not taking care of yourself, you're bringing that right back to your household. So if you live with somebody who's older, if you live with somebody who has an underlying medical condition, you are bringing this virus back home to them. So there's lots of reasons why you should care for yourself, but you should also care about the people in your household and the other people that you're going to come in contact with when you're out there partying. So that's why we're here. We got a tip that there's going to be a party in this block tonight. We're going to shut it down.
A question from Laura Washington, Chicago Sun-Times. She said the mayor has warned that we won't be able to come out of the shutdown if the parties continue. Will you extend the city shutdown if people continue to defy the order, and could it go beyond the end of the month?
Yeah, we're going to stay in the status quo as long as we need to. And I know a lot of people have expectations that come June, we're going to be out of this. Not if we keep seeing what we're seeing over the course of the last week. We still haven't seen cases go down. They're continuing to go up. We still haven't seen hospitalizations go down. They're flat, which is good, but it's not the same thing as going down. So we're always going to be guided by the data, and what the data has told us week after week while we've been in this is staying home makes a difference. Staying home stopped the surge that we feared of 40,000 hospitalizations. Stop the surge that we feared of 62,000 deaths in our city. But we are not where we need to be, and we're going to continue to be diligent.
Questions for the superintendent?
Sure.
Yes.
Superintendent, you said that you guys are aware of 6 parties
Total
planned
of 6, including the one here.
Tonight.
Yes.
What is that going to look like as you are trying to stop these parties from happening?
Well, we need to notify people that we are not going to tolerate congregating for parties. We'll be towing cars if necessary. We'll be making arrests to the homeowners. We'll try to give warnings to disperse, but we've given enough warnings. We're getting at the point where we're trying to save lives. And if our message is not resonating with people who are promoting parties or coming out to parties, we have to take that next level of enforcement in order to make sure we save lives. So towing cars, making arrests, citations, they're all on the table to discourage our residents from throwing parties and risking all of our lives.
How many parties were broken up last night, and were there any arrests associated with that?
There were multiple dispersing of the parties last night. We didn't make any arrests. They were all over the city. It really took us away from some of our crime fighting. And so we're struggling with this. I know you know this, but we've lost officers to the COVID-19. We've lost firefighters to the COVID-19 who've given the ultimate sacrifice, willing to risk their lives to save all of us. For a silly party, you are risking first responders' lives. Think about that. That's the silliest thing you can discuss with me, is how you justify having a party risking all of our lives, including our first responders. So we're going to take any and all measures necessary to discourage and end this partying during the COVID pandemic.
And are you primarily being alerted about these parties from other residents in the community, or are you monitoring social media? How are you finding out about what's happening?
These promoters are pretty blatant in their invitations to parties. Come one, come all. You just have to get on any kind of open source social media or other data and find this information out. They're being pretty bold and blatant. They're emboldened by the warm weather. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out what the party is. But it's stretching our resources. And so we have to take now firm enforcement when we find you hosting a party, attending a party, driving to a party. We don't want to tow your car. We don't want to cite you. We don't want to arrest you for a party. But this is about saving lives. I can't emphasize that enough. You are risking your life and you're risking the lives of others because of your irresponsible behavior.
Okay, that's it for me.
Question from A.D. Quigg at Cranes. Why didn't CPD break up yesterday's protest at the Thompson Center, which was estimated to have at least 200 people?
Well, I'll start and then I'll turn it to the superintendent. As you know, the vast majority of those people were on state property. CPD was out. First District, I think, did a very good job when people gravitated into property that was our jurisdiction. We didn't let people linger in the streets, shut down traffic. And I think most people expressing their First Amendment rights, I would have liked to see them do it with social distancing. But as long as they were complying, we were, I think, had a good strategy and plan, and I thought the First District did an outstanding job. There were a couple of knuckleheads that wouldn't listen, and they got arrested. Superintendent.
And I would add that for protests, we try to err on the side of First Amendment. Our Constitution is really important to us. We want to be a constitutional policing organization, and so as much latitude as we gave, we still enforce the law when our orders weren't followed and they were blatant about it. So we feel good about our strategy as it relates to protests. We feel good about the theme of leaning more toward the rights of First Amendment in order to express yourself and your thoughts and politically on a political subject. So we feel good about it, and we feel good about what transpired yesterday.
Yeah. A few questions from Vivian McCall with WBEZ on the stay-at-home order. First question. What are the main differences between city restrictions and statewide COVID policies?
I think the significant one is we're not opening up our lakefront. We're not opening up our golf courses. There's nothing in our data that justifies doing that, so we're not going to do that. There's not going to be any boating or the other things that were opened up. We are working with non-essential businesses to make sure that they're complying, but opening back up in a way that would put people at risk, we're just not going to do that.
Second question, will these restrictions be lifted at the end of May?
I have no reason to know when precisely. As I've said many, many times, it's all going to be about the data. We have to see more progress than we've made now. We're just at the beginning of May. I'm hopeful that we'll make progress, but again, a lot of it's going to depend upon people being compliant and staying at home.
And last question, Mayor. If you could reiterate why these additional restrictions, these city restrictions, are important.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
If you could reiterate why these additional city restrictions are important.
Because the data tells us that they're important. When we get to a point where we see cases not just slow down in increase, but actually go down and go down over a sustained period of time. When we see the number of hospitalizations, number of ICU beds, number of ventilators that are occupied by COVID positive patients, when those numbers start to go down, right now we're flat, which is progress, but it's not down. So we're going to always be guided by the data. That's why, as anxious as people are, no one's more anxious than I am to open the city back up. Our businesses are being hurt, livelihoods are being lost, but we can't get there and risk life, literally life and death, until we see better sustained results, and we're just not there yet. Why I'm coming out here on the west side and why the superintendent is here, the commissioner's here, a woman who's the president of a block club, is because we're trying to implore our fellow residents of Chicago to stay the course. Staying the course has worked. We know that. We see it in the data every single day. But if we relax just because it's nice, we're going to be in trouble.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you,
going to go over
everyone.
here and talk to these young men.